Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This is my 3rd year here, so thank you all so much for letting me come back and hopefully not bore you for the next 45 minutes. I want to start by this talk by asking, how many of you have ever felt like an imposter before? Look around. Keep your hands up, look around, right? Okay. I'm also going to tell you that I feel like an imposter all the time. In fact, this is the first time I've ever done this talk, and I feel right now like I've got no credibility to be on this stage talking about imposter syndrome, because I normally only ever speak about personal branding, right? So I feel like an imposter right here. But the whole reason I wanted to give you guys this talk today is because we can't all be imposters. We can't all be not deserving of the position that we're in. And I think imposter syndrome is the #1 thing that holds every single person back from achieving what they deserve to achieve. The lack of confidence to apply for that role that you want, the lack of confidence to ask that person out on a date, that lack of confidence to ask for what you think you deserve. Like I just asked you all to go and buy my book. That made me feel sick. But I did it anyway because I really want my book to do well, and I want you guys to do well. And so when I was talking to Mark and the team about what could I come and talk to you about that was maybe a little bit different from what I've done in previous years, we landed on imposter syndrome. Fun fact, 70% of us will feel like an imposter at some point in our career. And I don't think that is just in our careers. I think it's in our lives. And as I said, imposter syndrome is not something that any of us can naturally overcome. I think the fact that you've all just put your hands up and you're all senior leaders in your positions shows that we all suffer it at some point. But what is imposter syndrome? Well, imposter syndrome is self-doubt. And self-doubt makes you human. Imposter syndrome is not a medical condition that some doctor is going to diagnose you with and prescribe pills for you to take in order for you to overcome it. Self-doubt is something that we all have. And in fact, I am from the firm belief that self-doubt actually keeps you competitive. Because what an incredible thing for you to have an internal mechanism that tells you, I'm not qualified to do this. And maybe I should learn how to do this. Maybe that thing that scares me so much is actually the thing that I should be doing. And that is what imposter syndrome is. And that is why it's such an incredible tool and that you can use to your advantage. Every single one of you has this thing within you that is an alarm bell ringing, that there is something that is stopping you currently from achieving what you want to achieve. Every single one of you. Hands up, those of you in this room right now who want to do something but aren't doing it because they don't feel like they have the skill set to do it. Again, look around. That's about 70% of you, right? We just said 70% of you feel like an imposter. I would say that's about right. And the reason why we are doing that is because we are scared of failing. Hands up, anyone follows me on LinkedIn? Okay, so you'll know that I talk a lot about failure. Failure is my #1 favorite thing to talk about. And the reason why I talk about failure so much is because imposter syndrome, self-doubt, lack of confidence, that inner critic, that voice in your head that tells you every single fucking day that you're not good enough, comes from you being scared of failing. And you looking stupid in front of your friends. And people talking about you behind your back. Let me tell you, no one gives a shit about whether you fail or not. In fact, 99% of people only care about whether they fail or not. So if every single one of us is scared about whether we fail and whether we look stupid and whether we're an imposter, what are you worried about? Why do you care what other people think? As I said, it's not a condition, it's a mindset. And if you can get to a point where you understand that your imposter syndrome isn't a medical condition, it's not a syndrome, it is self-doubt, and self-doubt keeps you competitive because it is that alarm bell that rings within you and says, there's something here that I need to learn. You can start reframing that inner critic and start learning what it is that you need to do to become confident enough to stand on a stage having no fucking idea what you're talking about. Growth comes from doing things that you're unqualified to do. Did anyone get born into this world walking? Did anyone know exactly what it was they were doing when they first started their first job? Yeah, because no one knows how to do anything the first time they do it. Every single person sucks, in fact, the first time they do it. If anyone's got a child, I have two. I'm sure some of you have lots as well. And you watch them do things like walk, learn how to talk, they suck. They really suck at walking when they first try, kids. In fact, they fall over quite a lot. Okay? And do you think there is a single able-bodied adult in the world that goes, I'm sorry, I just gave up on walking because like my imposter syndrome was telling me that I just wasn't good enough to do it? Not a single adult, right? We all figure it out. And that's because children have this amazing ability to go, I want to learn how to do that thing and I'm going to keep doing it until I figure it out. But as we grow up and as we kind of become adults and the confidence gets beaten out of us, we get taught that we should only be doing things that we're qualified to do. And that holds you back. Because if you're only doing things that you're qualified to do, your potential will be consistently limited to the boundaries that you're building for yourself. You all think, when you think that you're an imposter or that you don't belong somewhere or that you're experiencing self-doubt, you believe that you're the only person in that room that feels that way. And so you think you're the center of this tiny little circle and the circle's much, much, much bigger, and that's what everyone else's knowledge is. The reality is all of our knowledge is the same, and every single one of us have different skills to add. But growth doesn't come from doing things that you already know how to do. Growth comes from doing things that you are unqualified to do. So if you don't apply for that job that you don't know how to do, how will you learn how to do it? If you don't ask your boss for that pay rise and negotiate on your salary, how are you going to learn how to earn more money? If you don't get the confidence to start posting on LinkedIn like I did in 2018 and decide for whatever reason I thought it was a great idea to selfie film myself with headphones walking around my kitchen talking into a camera, I wouldn't be standing on this stage. I felt like an imposter then and I feel like an imposter now, but the difference is I don't allow imposter syndrome to stop me from doing things. In fact, I use it as that alert system, as I said, to inform me of what decisions I need to be making in order to grow. Which leads me on to this beautiful slide. Hands up, anyone that's seen Inside Out 2. I knew there was a few smiles when I put that up. You guys saw this slide. Okay. So for those that you don't have children and clearly have terrible taste in movies, Inside Out 2 is one of the greatest films of all time. And one of the greatest films of all time that includes this lovely little character here called anxiety, which is quite a complex emotion, as many of us can understand. And the thing that anxiety does is she's really eager to please. She wants to do all the right things, and she wants to make sure that Riley, who is her person, succeeds in life. And so she wants to only do the things that she's going to be perfect at. And at the end of the movie, anxiety is having a spinning around so much that the person can't function. You can't overthink your way into success. You cannot overthink your way into that pay rise, that promotion, that career opportunity, that date, that whatever it is that you want to do. You cannot think your way there. So every single minute that you spend worrying about what the outcome is going to be, about what someone's going to think about you not being qualified to be in that room, in that position, in that seat, you're not taking action. And when you don't take action, nothing fucking happens. You just sit in your head and you fester in anxiety. For those of you that have seen Inside Out 2, you fester in that anxiety, and that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't take action, you think you're not good enough, so you don't take the action to get good enough, and you remain in the same position, which then feeds your self-doubt and feeds your imposter syndrome. The antidote to self-doubt and the way to silence your inner critic is to do, not to think. Because when you do, you become confident. When you do, you don't think. You base your decisions on the outcomes in which you have. And I can't stress the importance enough. Again, I said when I came up here a minute ago, this is the first time I've done this talk, by the way, and those slides I cannot see on this lovely screen. So every time I click the clicker, I don't actually know what's going to come up on this screen. I could let that self-doubt of not knowing what's going to come up next stop me from being able to deliver the message that I actually want to deliver to you, which is your self-doubt is what is going to keep you competitive and ultimately help you grow. So I've got some final advice for you before I give you into my massive speech about silencing your inner critic and how you can do it for yourself. Find your people. If you are not surrounded by a group of people who support you and who hype you up and who support all the endeavors that you have, you will always be your biggest critic. And that goes the other way. If you're not someone who is speaking to your friends on a daily basis and hyping up your colleagues and hyping up your team and hyping up your managers, you will not get that back. It is so important that as a society that we build each other up. Imposter syndrome exists because we're all so scared to look stupid. We're not willing to take the action that we deserve to take in order to get to where we want to go. And if you're not being that person for someone else, they can't be that person for you. Hands up here, anyone who's ever failed at something at work and been told off for it. How did that make you feel? Horrible. Did you try that thing again? And what happened then? You succeeded, exactly. And would you be sat here right now if you didn't do it again? No. If you allow imposter syndrome to inform your decisions and allow these people that are around you to not boost you up, you're never, ever, ever going to get to where you want to go. So, just fucking do it was the title of this talk. Just fucking do it. The world doesn't need more perfect people doing perfect things. We need more people who are willing to show up and be themselves and show other people what is possible when you take action. As I just asked the question a minute ago, how many of you have failed? Many of you have failed. But the world doesn't change when you fail. The world is exactly the same. The world was the same when I left my ex-husband. The world was the same when my first business failed and I had to move back in with my parents with about 50p in my bank account. The world was the same when I was told that I wasn't good enough to join the workforce again because I'd only ever been self-employed. The world will be the same when I finish this speech and realize that I've missed about 50 points that I wanted to make. It's going to be exactly the same. And I think genuinely the key to silencing that inner critic is to reframe it. As I keep hammering to you, it keeps you competitive. Use it as your alarm bell. But the key to being confident in yourself is realizing that failure, which is the reason why we all feel like imposters, we all feel like scared to make decisions and scared to take action because we're so worried about looking stupid. The key to overcoming imposter syndrome is to recognize that the failure isn't actually a bad thing. And this is my whole message. One of the reasons why I got into personal branding in the first place was not because I'm good at personal branding. I love personal branding. I think I'm quite good at it. You know, very kindly said about the LinkedIn Top Voice. And we work with many LinkedIn Top Voices, and we've done a great job on LinkedIn with people that we do work with. But that's not why I'm building a personal brand. I'm building a personal brand because the reason I'm standing on this stage right now is because I overcame my imposter syndrome through building my personal brand that has enabled me to live a life that I am so fucking proud of. In 2019, I didn't own my own home. I didn't feel good enough to ask for pay rises. I didn't feel good enough to ask what I've deserved. I didn't feel good enough to be loved. I didn't feel good enough to do anything because I didn't think I was qualified. I didn't think I was deserving. When I started posting content online and exposed myself to people telling me I was wrong, I'm a failure, guess what happened? I got more comfortable with people telling me I was wrong and I'm a failure. And do you know what happens when you get comfortable with that? You get confident. Because confidence doesn't come from being right. Confidence doesn't come from people telling you you're great. Confidence comes from people telling you you're wrong and being okay with that because you know you're going to succeed anyway. And reframing your imposter syndrome into that is the only way you can silence your inner critic. It's the only way that you can take the opportunities that every single one of us deserve. There is more than enough opportunity for everyone. But we all deserve, and we all deserve to ourselves to take those opportunities. But the only way that you're going to be able to do that is by understanding that failure is the quickest way to succeed. But in order for you to understand that, you're going to have to fail. You're going to have to fuck up. You're going to have to apply for those roles and get told no. You're going to have to ask your customer or your employer or whoever for a pay rise and be told why. You're going to have to start building your personal brand online and have 250,000 people tell you you're wrong in order to believe in yourself. because that is the only thing that matters. When you all die, which by the way you will, it's something we all are very scared of, but this is only ending one way, and I can tell you it's the same way for all of us. When you all die, the number one regret that every single person that has ever been interviewed about this topic has is they wish they didn't care about what other people think. And your imposter syndrome is a manifestation of what you think other people think of you when you fail. Which leads me on to my final rant of the day. You only have to be 51% sure to make a decision. That is a quote from Barack Obama. You only have to be 51% sure to make a decision. You guys are overlooking so many opportunities, whether that be building your brand, whether that be hiring that person you think you should hire, whether that be asking for that pay rise, developing that person, asking someone out a date, whatever it might be, because you believe you have to be 100% right before you make that decision, which is stopping you from taking action. I told you before, action is the only thing that stops you from feeling like an imposter. We work with so many FTSE executives, people who've built billion-dollar businesses. We signed someone on Monday who's probably one of the most well-known and polarizing characters on LinkedIn, and he tells me he still feels like an imposter. So if every single one of us feels that, why are we allowing it to make decisions for us? You are in control of your brain. Has anyone ever read The Chimp Paradox? Okay, if you haven't read it, you should read it. The Chimp Paradox talks about the inner chimp that we all have, that primal beast that is telling us to fight or flight. And that is what imposter syndrome is. It takes in information and it makes a decision about whether it's going to run or it's going to stay. But our chimp is not in control of us. You are in control of the chimp. And when you allow imposter syndrome to make decisions for you, you're allowing a primal, very unuseful part of your brain decide what you're going to be doing with your career. But you only have to be 51% sure to make the decisions that you need to make. You don't have to be 100% sure before you ask for a pay rise. And by the way, imposter syndrome exponentially affects women more than men. There are statistics around there that men believe that they should apply for a job when they only meet about 30 to 20% of the criteria, right? Nodding heads. You guys are all in this industry. You know these stats better than me. Women need to meet about 60 to 80% of the criteria to apply for the job. And that manifests itself across the whole of our lives, men and women. My partner jokes to me all the time, whenever I serve dinner, I go, oh, I could have done that better. I could have done that better. Because to me, I don't feel like I was good enough to serve the particular meal that I've just served. And so this imposter syndrome thing manifests itself in all areas of our life. It's not just about our careers. It's not just about, I don't deserve to be there, or I don't deserve that seat at the table. It's everywhere. But the problem is, you are basing your decisions on whether or not you win, right? You only want to do things that you think you're going to be great at. I said right at the beginning, everyone sucks at stuff when they start. But the thing is, you need to reframe winning, to really silence that inner critic and really take control of imposter syndrome and stop allowing it to stop you from doing stuff like this, which may be your idea of hell. It was mine like 5 years ago. But to get to where you want to go, you need to reframe winning. Instead of it being like a failure or a loss, you need to reframe it into, well, if I lose, I get a great fucking story. And if I win, I get a great fucking outcome. But either way, you've won. Because as we've identified, when you do things over and over again, even if you're not good at them to start with, like speaking, the reason why I come back and give these talks so much with In-House Recruitment Live is this was one of the first companies that gave me a shot on a stage. And so I'm very loyal to this brand because they gave me the shot when I felt like the biggest imposter in the world. And my first keynote kind of sucked. I won't lie. I could have done it better. But we've improved since then. And that's my point. I got a great story from that. I worked out what I needed to improve, and now I get a great outcome. Now I get paid to go and speak on stages all around the world about personal branding, about what I've done with my career, about failure. But that's only because it started with a yes, I'm going to do that. It started with action. It started with me deciding that I'm going to stop allowing the imposter syndrome, the chimp in my head. I call it the chatterbox with my children. says, your chatterbox talking to you again. And they go, yeah, we don't listen to the chatterbox, do we? No, we don't. You're allowing your chatterbox to make decisions for you. So, reframe failure. It's not about whether you win or lose. It's about whether or not you get a great outcome or a great story. The final thing I want to leave you with, because I wasn't expecting that slide to come up because there was another slide there, but that's okay. Imposter syndrome. We don't need more perfect people in the world. There is enough of those people online, and I think we're all bored of watching those people. What we need is real, authentic people taking action and living the life that they want to live. And that is what's going to inspire other people to do the same for themselves. That's going to inspire your team. That's going to inspire your kids. That's going to inspire other people in this room that might be colleagues to do the same for themselves. You don't have to be perfect to be amazing at something. And there was a very, very smart and well-educated and far more successful person said to me once, done well is always better than perfect, because perfect is just another word for not taking action. I think we've got some questions.